Here are the stories we're covering this week in the Category 5.tv newsroom. An open source bug poses a dangerous threat to sites running on Joomla, Drupal, or Typo3. A zero-day exploit in WhatsApp has been used in targeted spyware attacks. Surprise! Microsoft has sent out free remote desktop security patches for antiquated systems from Windows XP up to Server 2008 in an effort to prevent a possible WannaCry-like attack. San Francisco is the first U.S. city to ban facial recognition. These stories are coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
Jeff Weston,
Yeah, man.
you're building a brand new, beautiful website,
What?
aren't you?
No. Am I?
Oh, you're a terrible actor.
What?
This is where acting comes into play.
Oh, I didn't know we were acting.
You're supposed to act.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I'm building a really cool website. Are you building a really cool website? Just because Jeff is confused doesn't mean you have to be. Visit cat5.tv/dreamhost to sign up for unlimited web hosting for your website with unlimited email accounts, MySQL databases, the latest version of PHP, WordPress, and more, and even a free domain name registration. It's less than $6 per month, so sign up today. cat5.tv/dreamhost.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. An open source bug poses a dangerous threat to sites running Joomla, Drupal, or Typo3. Developers and security researchers are warning that websites running the Drupal, Joomla, or Typo3 content management systems are vulnerable to attacks that could possibly execute malicious code until administrators install just released patches. The vulnerability resides in the Farstream Wrap, a PHP component developed and open-sourced by CMS maker Typo3. The flaw stems from a path transversal bug that allows hackers to swap a site's legitimate FAR archive with a malicious one. A FAR archive is used to distribute a complete PHP application in a library or a single file in much the way a Java archive file bundles many Java files into a single file. Drupal developers rated the severity of the vulnerability affecting their CMS as moderately critical. That's well below the highly critical rating of a recent Drupal vulnerability and an earlier remote execution flaws that took the name Drupalgeddon. Still, the vulnerability represents enough of a risk that administrators should patch it as soon as possible. On Drupal, where the exploit was first detected, an attacker would have to have limited administrator privileges, such as those given to marketing people or graphic designers. However, some community modules might be vulnerable because of this flaw in the Drupal core. Joomla developers, meanwhile, issued their own advisory that rated the severity as low. Typo3 developers didn't provide a severity rating for their own CMS. Drupal users should update to the latest point release right away. Patches have been issued for versions 7, 8.6, and 8.7. On Joomla, the flaw affects versions 3.9.3 through 3.9.5, and the fix is available in 3.9.6. Typo3 CMS users should either upgrade to Farstream Wrap versions v3.1.1 and v2.1.1 manually, or ensure composer dependencies are raised to those versions.
Okay.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
It was.
Like,
Way
I'm
to
just
go.
listening
Thank
to you talk.
you.
I'm like, that's like a Dr. Seuss book right there.
And it's warm in here.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, how many websites?
That was not as freezing. What are you talking about?
How many websites run off Drupal and Joomla?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I
Right.
feel like those are the go-to that people
You may not
build.
even know. Well, WordPress is there too,
Yes.
but it's not affected by this particular exploit.
Yeah.
But so if you're not familiar with Drupal, Joomla, or Typo3, you can think a la WordPress. Same kind of idea. But you think about, okay, well, they have to have administrator access to some degree in order to exploit this. But what does that mean? Well, every customer who has ever called me and said, I want to be able to edit my phone number myself whenever it changes, they have access to doing that.
Yep.
Right.
They don't always have the strongest of passwords, let alone the best of security mindedness necessarily. So it's not just the super administrators who know their way around these platforms. It's the people who are editing their website for them who may be a very lower level employee or even like a co-op student or something who has access to changing things on their website for them.
But
Right.
not only that,
It's very common.
You have small business owners that typically will try and use an easy-to-use platform to create their own website.
Yeah.
And quite often they'll
Yeah.
use something like Drupal, throw the, extensions in, get this site up, and then walk away. And be like, I never have to update the content, so I can just leave it sitting there and not paying attention to this stuff.
No.
So for those that have a Drupal-based, Joomla-based, or the other one I'm blanking on what it was.
Typo 3.
Typo 3 site. Did they get an alert? Did they get something from their ISP?
This is your
This
alert.
is it. This is
Okay,
the
there you
official
go.
warning.
Joomla alert. If you're using Joomla, upgrade to
Okay.
something else.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they said it's not a severe vulnerability.
I think it's funny that they have certain levels of severe.
Yes.
There's low severe, low critical. Like this is a critical issue. It really is critical in that, as I say, like a lot of companies have lower level employees who have access to their
Right.
their content.
It should be safe or unsafe. At this point,
Yeah.
unsafe.
This is really
Switch it to safe.
like
Yeah.
let's just say it's critical update.
And I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, there's a difference between, by the way, anybody can do
Yeah.
this on your site versus somebody needs to have some sort of admin access to make this happen. So there's a couple more steps that have to be applied before
Sure.
this exploit can be utilized. So I can understand why they're saying it's not quite end of the world, issues.
Like Drupalgeddon.
Like Drupalgeddon, but definitely not something you want to have sitting around for too long. And especially if you don't have secure passwords. I mean, how many people like, oh my goodness, there's so many sites, they're all the same password, I just add
Yeah.
a number at the end. Come on!
Okay, now.
Password 1234. But does that not make us complacent? By
does.
believing that this is critical, but it's not that important. It's not that dangerous. Like, let's just, okay, this is a really serious exploit that can allow code execution on my server.
Right.
Yeah, we're
Which-
not saying this is a suggestion to fix. Get it fixed.
Yeah, just update. Let's just play it safe and just update your your website for sure. Sound fair?
A zero-day exploit in WhatsApp has been used in targeted spyware attacks.
Oh.
The vulnerability that allowed attackers to install spyware on victims' phones has been patched, but it's too late for many as attackers were able to inject spyware onto phones in targeted malware campaigns. The popular messaging app discovered in early May that attackers were installing surveillance software on iPhones and Android phones by using WhatsApp's call function. WhatsApp confirmed on Monday that the flaw, which has now been patched, is a buffer overflow vulnerability in WhatsApp's VoIP stack, which allows remote access execution via a specially crafted series of secure packets sent to a target phone number. Adam Brown, manager of security solutions at Synopsys, says, quote, victims of this attack include journalists and activists. Attackers are able to use the victim's phone as a room tap, look at or change information on the phone, and find the victim's location, among other things, end quote. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook and is used by 1.5 billion people globally. The messaging platform touts itself as a secure end-to-end encryption app for communication. Security experts are urging WhatsApp users to update their apps as soon as possible.
Yikes.
Secure, right?
WhatsApp is supposed to be that secure go-to, and you
Yeah.
mentioned your source is said that this is used by and is being exploited. People are being exploited that are like journalists and activists, and,
Right.
and you think about journalists in dangerous scenarios. They're going to use what is known to be a secure app in order to do their communications. So.
What they didn't say is how do you identify if you have been compromised with this spyware?
Yeah, they
Can
did-
you?
It's already too late for people.
Right.
So just, I guess, assume you have been, especially if you're in a situation.
Sure.
Like,
But then how do
can
you know? Like at least with my phone, I have some monitoring software from ESET, so I'm hoping that would catch it. But I mean, if not everybody thinks to protect their phones.
Again, though,
So
like
like you-
ESET Mobile Security will warn you if an app is trying to gain access that you have not authorized. However, the problem is that something like WhatsApp, if you use it for encrypted phone calls,
Which I have not.
But if you do, which a journalist would,
Right.
what are they going to do when ESET says that, hey, this app that you're using, WhatsApp, is using your microphone? Allow.
Yes.
Right? So now that app is allowed. So if that app is exploited, even with anti-malware, even with some form of protection, and even being a smart user, you have no control over the fact that, hey, yeah, you authorized the microphone to be used, and now it's actually a wiretap.
So if you suspect that you are one of the people who are affected, if you uninstall the app and do a factory reset of your phone, would that get rid of the spyware?
No, you'd lose everything.
Yeah, you would lose everything.
You,
But
you almost hope that just updating the software, like the version of WhatsApp to the latest, because they've patched it. Facebook has fixed it,
right.
but it's those versions that are susceptible that have received the packet and been exploited.
Right.
Whether it's retroactive or not, maybe that's something for you to
Inquire about
investigate. Yeah.
if you have WhatsApp and use it.
Get
for-
into the community and find out. I don't have the answer to that, Sasha, and that's an ominous thought. Like, even if you update, does that fix it?
Right.
We're not, you're right. We're
Does
not
it-
hearing that.
Right. Does it protect you for future? Yes. But does it fix what's happened in the past?
Yeah, if you've already been exploited,
Maybe.
is it retroactive and fixes it, or are you
Yeah.
exploited and permanently exploited? That's the question.
Bum, bum.
But it just goes to show that even an app that you think is safe, because that's what WhatsApp has promoted itself as,
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
and you authorize it to use certain aspects of your phone, and then it's exploited, and guess what? You've given access to those malicious parties.
Yep.
Scary stuff. Surprise! Microsoft has sent out free remote desktop security patches for antiquated systems from Windows XP to Server 2008 in an effort to prevent a possible WannaCry-like attack. It's that time of the month again, and Microsoft has released a bumper bundle of security fixes for Patch Tuesday. But this time, they've done something outside the norm by including patches for out-of-support operating systems such as Windows XP and Server 2003. Usually, support for such aging operating systems costs big bucks for companies who want to keep running it, but Microsoft has released a freebie because of the serious nature of a critical flaw in remote desktop services or terminal services as it was. The vulnerability allows remote code execution with no user involvement or any authentication required, making it a gift to anyone wanting to spread malware. Basically, find one of the countless vulnerable Windows boxes facing the internet or on a network and send a carefully crafted packets to its remote desktop service, if running, to start executing malicious code on the machine. From there, other computers can be found by scanning IP ranges, and then you've got a proper old-school worm on your hands. A Microsoft advisory states that because the vulnerability can be wormable, any future malware that exploits it could propagate from vulnerable computer to vulnerable computer in a similar way as the WannaCry malware spread across the globe in 2017 using the Eternal Blue NSA exploit. Microsoft warns that it is highly likely malicious actors will write an exploit for this vulnerability and incorporate it into their malware. It's important that affected systems are patched as quickly as possible to prevent such a scenario from happening. It's a certainty that this will be exploited in the wild since it's a low-cost, highly effective way of quickly distributing ransomware and Trojans. Windows 8 and 10 are unaffected, but there's still a vast pool of older systems out there that could be hit if left unpatched, including Windows 7 and XP. The affected operating system builds include Windows 7, Windows Server 2008, R2, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2003, and Windows XP. Wow, that's a lot.
I didn't
Yeah.
think Microsoft was still servicing those versions.
Well, they are only to companies that are paying for extended support.
Right.
Yes.
But
But-
now they're saying, okay, this is so serious that we have to patch this.
Do you
Yes.
think this is one of those things where it could, they could have said, "Oh, we won't worry about it," but the PR nightmare that could come from it, they're like, "Let's just roll this out for everybody?
I don't even know. Is it fully a PR thing, or is it like?
Well, I mean, if
It's
there was another
serious.
WannaCry type thing,
Do
and it
they
hit all
have a
these systems-
heart? Because I think about Windows XP. Who's still running Windows XP? It's going to be hospitals, and it's going to be like places like that have not got the budget to finally get onto current hardware.
Governments typically
Yeah.
are very behind.
Absolutely.
So-
we know that.
Yeah.
So, but a hospital, as the example, which has been hit in the UK by WannaCry, and that affects lives and endangers lives.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if all these machines, which, maybe they're old, like heart monitors and who knows what else, and what if they're impacted by that? So, it's just got to be patched. I mean, we know we shouldn't be running Windows XP. We
Yeah.
probably shouldn't be running Windows 7 at this point. Do keep in mind, if you have Windows 7 installed on any of your machines, end of life is January. So, we're very fast approaching that end of life.
It's smart that they do this because it protects everybody, from the spread, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not just going to affect the older versions. It would, I guess, self-propagate or.
Well, you're right that if, let's say we've got that one Windows XP machine in the back room, and we think, oh, well, nobody uses that, so, just don't worry about it. And never think twice about it, but that's the one that's going to be exploited.
Right.
And guess what? It's on the same LAN, it's on the same network as your best computers.
Right.
And in a hospital environment, all of your hospital computers, all of your point of sales in a store, all of everything that you have is connected to that same network.
Yep. And
Right.
in the chat room, Alpac just mentioned that a lot of ATMs.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember
you
covering
still
that
see
in a
it.
news story.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Anytime there's a blue screen of death at an ATM, I laugh because it's still Windows XP. Airports. Airports
Yes.
are still using XP on some of their system. I mean, not the best modern airports, but not every airport is the best. They're not all Pearson International.
Right.
So these are, they've put in there hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computer hardware that still works. So why should we change that? Why should we put hundreds of thousands of dollars more into it when it's still working?
Yep.
And there's no budget for that in a lot of cases, not necessarily with an airport, but I'm just giving examples where, we end up with older hardware or older software and we're
Exactly.
susceptible.
Still, got to get it fixed.
It's true. It's good
Yes.
that Microsoft is actually stepping up and doing that because it really could lead to disaster.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it's important to note, because this is a remote desktop exploit, I just want to say that remote desktop in and of itself is not a safe thing to have turned on your computer
Correct.
anyways.
Right.
Turn it off. Don't ever turn it on. And the reason I say that, there are tools that allow you to remote into your computers that are safe, that if somebody tries to attack it, will block them. Remote desktop, on the other hand, is a service on your computer that, when turned on, allow you to connect to your computer from home. However, there's no security.
That's right.
If your password is anything, and your password could easily be guessed by a bot,
Yeah.
on your computer. So think about this for a second. They're going to connect. They find them through the internet. They find computers that have RDP running, and they start guessing at the password. You never know. You would never know that they're trying to guess at your password. And come 2 o'clock in the morning, when they finally gain access to your computer and you're at home in bed, they can wreak all kinds of havoc, because guess what? Your computer also has access to the server on your network and everything else. So now your network is completely compromised. And people say, well, how did I get ransomware? I've got antivirus. Because you also had RDP enabled. And you've allowed an actual party to hack into, using a bot, your computer, and then a real person got in, because the bot now notifies them and says, here's the password to get into this IP address. Either they have exploited your network, or they've taken your network, they've analyzed it, figured out what kind of assets you have, and then they've sold that to a third party in order to compromise your network. Turn off
Good
remote
times.
desktop, okay?
Wow.
Just turn it off.
Yeah. San Francisco is the first U.S. city to ban facial recognition. The emerging technology will not be allowed to be used by local agencies such as the city's transport authority or law enforcement. Additionally, any plans to buy any kind of new surveillance technology must now be approved by city administrators. Opponents of the measure said that it will put people's safety at risk and hinder efforts to fight crime. Those in favor of the move said that technology as it exists today is unreliable and represented an unnecessary infringement on people's privacy and liberty. In particular, opponents argued that the systems are error-prone, particularly when dealing with women or people with darker skin. Matt Kagel from the American Civil Liberties Union in Northern California says that by banning facial recognition, San Francisco has declared that the technology is incompatible with a healthy democracy and that residents deserve a voice in decisions about high-tech surveillance. The vote was passed by San Francisco's supervisors 8-1 with 2 absentees. The measure is expected to be officially passed into law after a second vote next week.
Okay.
Okay.
It's interesting how the technology has risen up, and hey, this is the time that we live in, right? Where
Right. It makes me wonder, though, like, I don't know if they have a casino at, in the city, but a lot of casinos use facial recognition software to pick out their frequent problem clients that are banned and stuff like that.
Neat.
Makes me wonder how that would impact businesses that are utilizing it.
And I think that's why some opponents to the law have called for them to, instead of banning it outright, to be to allow certain industries to allow it, for example.
Right.
But they've clamped down on it and said no,
Yeah.
not at all.
It'd be interesting to know, I feel like I've just said that twice, but if somebody, like, if you use facial recognition, if you had to post it, it's one thing to say,
Right.
oh, like, this place is monitored by, closed caption recording, but if it said this building uses facial recognition
We
software,
use AI.
it'd be interesting to see how that impacted things, instead of saying, oh, we're not banning it, but you have to signify facial recognition is used. If people would go, ooh, okay.
I wonder if they would reconsider if it weren't so, I guess, unreliable. Because
That's it.
unreliable.
We heard in the news recently about a young man who was arrested because of facial recognition.
Right.
We don't know, was his claim that he was innocent true or false?
Right.
But what if? It raises a very big what if. What if the facial recognition was incorrect? What if you walked into a place, did your shopping, and then paid and left and went home, and then saw your face on the news because facial recognition said that you
Stole something.
from that store?
Well, I mean, any retail outlet builds shrinkage into their business model because you're going to have
No,
theft.
I know. That
No,
aside,
but-
though.
No, but so you take that aspect and go, what if businesses all over the place had, facial recognition built into their software, so it automatically created a police report, and the fallout from this, and then to see, if that was in place, and then with this ban on facial recognition, how would it change the game? Like, there's so many variables to it. Like, where could it have gone
Yeah.
to change industry standards versus where is it limited now?
That almost makes me think, what if they created a controlled environment and allowed the AI to go wild
Right.
and to believe, if it has any form of consciousness, to believe that it has the authority to decide who's guilty and who's innocent. And in this controlled environment where we know who's guilty and who's innocent because it's all a Truman Show, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What if we then look at those reports and say, okay, well that AI says that Sasha stole a stereo system, right? And we know she didn't.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like, what if somebody looks like you and the AI says that's
or what
you?
what if I did steal it and then I went home and got some Botox?
Or anything
Right?
like that.
And then all of a sudden my face doesn't match the face that stole it.
And if the AI, as we've learned, has problems with racial discrimination,
Yeah.
how, like, where does it, how, this is a
Yeah.
big problem because now, okay, well, now who's safe?
So-
Like, we already deal with racial issues with guilty before proven innocent.
Right.
It's
So
like-
is this decision premature to all out ban it, or is it more a fear-based decision, or like
or is it? It's not ready yet.
It's
we
not-
are not
yeah.
going
It's a
to
protected
allow it.
piece.
Let's see how it evolves over the next little while.
Right. I
And
mean,
then
it's going to be used
reapproach
other
this.
places. San Francisco can just watch those other places
Yeah.
and see when they're ready to jump in.
right?
I like
Sure.
it.
Set up the controlled environment. Let's see if Sasha is a mastermind criminal. I believe she is. See, now that I've said that, the AI thinks you are.
Probably.
See, because
That's gonna show
I'm probably
up in
going to
your-
get
the
arrested.
things I
as soon
say
as
are
walk out
always
the door.
true.
Maybe that's going to show up in your.
I never
answers
make a
later.
mistake.
Right.
Yes. Oh, dear. Okay, I want to take a really quick look at CoinGecko. And if you were watching the show last week, you know that we mentioned that the entire market of cryptocurrency is extremely volatile.
Yes.
You never know from week to week what is going to happen.
Last week wasn't really good for Bitcoin.
No, you know what? Last week was just kind of everything for the past few weeks has just been kind of hovering.
Bitcoin was up like $500.
Dude, you have no idea.
I
Because
thought-
last week it was just kind of hovering right there.
Okay.
And then this week, so here we are 7 days later. So you might be thinking 4 days later.
Right.
But here we are 7 days later. Cryptocurrency is going crazy. So anyone who bought last week,
Yep.
1 week ago, if you bought one Bitcoin, you gained $2,226
Whoa.
US dollars.
Good for you.
Wow.
I'm talking a jump from last week's $5,916.21 US to this week a Bitcoin being worth $8,142.36 US. Litecoin also gaining quite significantly from $74.31 last week to $101.59 this week. Ethereum, if you're investing or mining Ethereum, we also jumped up, gaining $71.70, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I mean, this is per coin, and this is a coin that last week was only $170.
Yeah.
So to gain $71.
That's almost doubling.
It's an incredible gain. Monero at 66.48 last week gained 25.98 this week, and within the past 7 days is now up at $92.46. Now our little guys, Torque, aka PKA Stellite, is gaining ever so slightly. It's just the little guys, it's so cute. 1.63 10,000ths of a cent, gaining 0.44 10,000ths of a cent, and Turtlecoin also up at 1.44 10,000ths of a cent. Do remember, I mean, even though we're looking at these numbers this week and going, wow, I wish I bought a Bitcoin last week, the entire cryptocurrency market is always open. So it could change overnight. I mean, it could change at 1 a.m. and then again at 1:30 a.m.
That's right.
And you never know what's going to happen next. It's extremely volatile. You never really know what's happening. And there are too many factors as far as what's driving it right now. It has not stabilized. So if you decide to invest or mine, make sure you are extremely careful. And my suggestion is just don't invest anything that you aren't willing to lose.
Solid advice.
I like to think so.
Big thanks to Roy W. Nash and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category5.tv newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And for more free content, be sure to check out our website. From the Category5.tv newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Robbie Ferguson.
And I'm Jeff Weston.